Democrats have capitulated and bent the knee to Donald Trump and the Republican Party in a move that is equally spineless and tone-deaf when they voted to reopen the government and against your healthcare premiums, rising 2, 3, and even 4 times as much. It has become clear that we need new Democratic leadership. We're going to go over all of that today, so please remember to leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more information like this. And now we're going to get into this story. After millions protested across the country in No Kings rallies, and days after Democrats won resoundingly in multiple elections, people are furious. They are calling for the resignation, the removal, for leadership in the Democratic Party to step down. We had millions of people show up for No Kings rallies, and those people feel betrayed by the decision that the Democrats made in voting for opening the government, but getting no concessions in return. Nothing. All they got was an empty promise, and it will never create any kind of results that the American people deserve. You can see here the massive protests all across all of the different cities in America that came out to represent what they believed in. I mean, you can see here, is this what 11 million No Kings protesters protested for? For Chuck Schumer to fuck us over in the end. I mean, this is the type of stuff that you were seeing. You were seeing massive crowds. You're seeing people come out. You're seeing people literally protesting the current president in massive numbers like we've never seen before. And all for what? For us to bend the knee, for us to capitulate, for us to back out, for us to not stand up for the things that are good for this country? Democrats were overwhelmingly united on their shutdown demands. Americans understood that Trump and Republicans were to blame. Voters made it known last Tuesday that they will elect leaders who stand up to Trump. Democrats held the cards and folded for no reason. And you see this very fitting image here of Chuck Schumer bending the knee to Donald Trump. That's the message that we received as Democrats, as citizens, as the constituents of the Democratic Party. That's what people are understanding. Here's another message. Dems backed Trump into a corner where he's advocating for starving Americans and hemorrhaging support. If they vote to let him off the hook in exchange for nothing, it's a cataclysmic failure. I know people are in pain, but insulating Republicans from consequences is not the answer. And that's one of the things, is that we aren't rooting for the government to be shut down, but we have to make sure that we are protecting the future. And I really think that part of it comes down to understanding that this administration will use starving children as leverage. You can see here that Donald Trump's lawyers literally argued in court that feeding starving families undermines their ability to use hunger as political leverage for the shutdown. The Trump attorney was quoted saying, "Unfortunately, by injecting itself with erroneous short-term solution, which was to use the funds that were available for SNAP to feed starving families." They claim that the district court has scrambled ongoing political negotiations. That's what you are to them. That's what these people who are in need, who are hungry, who are starving, are to the Republican Party. They are political negotiations. And so we're going to take a look at what real Democratic leadership should look like. And we're going to start with the words of Bernie Sanders.
According to every poll that I have seen, the American people, quite understandably, by overwhelming margins, do not want to see a doubling of their health care premiums. 78% of Americans, including 59% of Republicans, want to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Now, I have got to say, I'm not a great fan of the Affordable Care Act. I believe that we should do what every other major country on earth does and guarantee health care as a human right through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of support for that here in the Senate. So our immediate job, at least, is to make sure that 20 million people who get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act do not see a doubling of their premiums.
And so the point that he's making and what Democrats were asking for is an extension of the Affordable Care Act, an extension of the subsidies that help families pay for insurance. That was the only ask that the Democrats had in order to reopen the government. And it seems like that's not important to the Republican Party. They don't care. They don't care about your health care. They don't care about your well-being. They don't care. And that's what the Democrats were fighting for. Here's another video from Bernie Sanders.
And my friends, know what you are voting on. Studies are out there that when you throw 15 million people off health care, some 50,000 of our fellow Americans will die unnecessarily every single year. Anyone think that's funny? Something to laugh at? Something to just go past? I don't. 50,000 Americans die unnecessarily. Now, I know as part of this resolution that the majority leader is going to say, well, Democrats can put together their own bill and it'll come to the floor here in the Senate for a vote. As everybody here knows, that is a totally meaningless gesture. You can get 100 votes here in the Senate. Won't mean anything because the House is not going to take it up, and the President of the United States certainly will not sign it.
And lastly, if you want to see exactly what it is that the Republican Party does stand for, what they do fight for, look no further than Bernie Sanders again explaining to us that it was tax cuts for the top wealthiest 1% billionaires of this country so that they can throw you under the bus while they buy their fifth yacht.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. What it does, first of all, is it raises healthcare premiums for over 20 million Americans by doubling, and in some cases tripling or quadrupling. People can't afford that when we're already paying the highest prices in the world for healthcare. Number 2, it paves the way for 15 million people to be thrown off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Studies show that will mean that some 50,000 Americans will die every year unnecessarily. And all of that was done to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. As everybody knows, just on Tuesday, we had an election all over this country. And what the election showed is that the American people want us to stand up to Trumpism, to his war against working class people, to his authoritarianism. That is what the American people wanted, but tonight, that is not what happened.
So when it comes to the 8 Democrats who caved and bent the knee to the Republican Party and to Donald Trump's whims, let's take a look at exactly who those representatives were. So here we have Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. She's not up for re-election until 2028. Same with Maggie Hassan. Same with John Fetterman. Tim Kaine, Angus King, and Jackie Rosen are not up for re-election until 2030. And the icing on the cake, Dick Durbin and Jeanne Shaheen are retiring. They can't even be primaried. I mean, thank God to have them out of the party, but they can't even be primaried. They make these decisions knowing that they aren't even going to be held responsible for those decisions. And that's exactly where these types of messages come from. Shame on the spineless 8 for betraying millions by voting to end the shutdown without a dime for ACA subsidies, handing Trump the keys to gut healthcare while you are pretending to fight. And that's what we're going to get into, is this pretend fight that the most notable Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, has gotten into. Make no mistake about it, it is a pretend fight. Chuck Schumer wants you to believe that he is fighting for you, that he's standing up for you. We've heard this time and time again from Chuck Schumer, and he is worthless. He is spineless. He is gutless. He does not represent the American people. He does not represent the Democrats. The party is changing. We are out with the old guard, and we need new leadership. A week ago, this is what he was trying to tell you that his fight was.
So now we're in a government shutdown. And you may be asking yourself, how the hell did we get here? Donald Trump and the Republican Party are hell-bent on taking healthcare away from 60 million people, closing community clinics, rural hospitals, nursing homes, all so they can keep giving tax breaks to their billionaire friends. It's a disgrace. So Democrats have 3 words for this. No fucking way. It's literally life or death. We will not let Republicans blow up our healthcare system. The bottom line, Donald Trump and the Republicans have chosen to shut down the government rather than work with us to defuse the ticking time bomb that will blow up healthcare for millions of Americans. Congressional Democrats are on the side of the American people, and together we will fight to make this right.
So what Chuck Schumer wants you to believe is that he was fighting for you, that he was fighting, voting no against the resolution, and basically that it was these 8 Democrats who did this behind his back. However, reporting shows that Schumer was more involved than reported with the attempted cave on the government shutdown. The gang of 8 Senate Democrats had his approval, and he was getting daily updates. At Thursday's meeting, they told their caucus colleagues that they now had 10 votes to reopen the government in exchange for no real Republican concessions. At that, much of the rest of the caucus went ballistic, and some of the supposed 10 said that, in fact, they were not willing to vote on any such deal. You remember when I called this leadership tone deaf? This is the post that Chuck Schumer made after the fact, saying that Democrats have been fighting for months to address America's healthcare crisis, and that we will keep fighting. And the responses tell you everything that you need to know. Classic loser Democrat lawmaker caving, and then explaining to us how they're still fighting in their explanation of caving. Fuck you, resign. People saying that you caved, you need to step down today. You just stopped fighting. And that's the thing. We had the fight there in front of us. To kick the can down the road and pretend like this fight can just happen another day at a later point, and to get empty promises in return is an absolute joke.
But let me be clear, however this vote turns out, this fight will and must continue. Democrats must fight because of millions of families will lose health care coverage. We must fight because children who are dying of cancer will not get health care coverage. We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin.
And now, if you think that that hypocrisy wasn't enough, here is Hakeem Jeffries spouting essentially the same message.
What is it? The shutdown worth it?
We have waged a battle on behalf of the American people.
But at the end of the day, you didn't get what you want. So was it worth waging this fight?
At the end of the day, the fight lives on.
The fight lives on. That's all it is. Kicking the can down the road to be a problem at a later date, to continue to be a problem instead of addressing it then and there when it should have been addressed. And so what we need is leadership that is willing to take on the Republicans, leadership that is willing to take on Donald Trump, leadership that is willing to fight now for the things that the American people deserve. And so I think this is the state of the Democratic Party right now. My respect for Chuck Schumer and the rest of the spineless Democrats who follow his weak lead is fast hitting rock bottom. More Democrats like Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Zoran Mamdani are needed to take on Trump and his MAGA enablers. You're seeing a younger generation that wants people that will fight for them. And that is what we need in this Democratic Party. We need representatives who are going to stand up for humanity and stand up for people of the United States. And if you like this video and want more like this, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as I will be bringing more content like this all the time.